Hello Animals fans and welcome back to AniLysis. Today we're looking at the Korla. Before I go into that, I just want to say apologies for recent video quality. I had my camcorder set incorrectly, which is why in various videos I'll be like bright Donald Trump orange 1 second and then Casper the Friendly Ghost the next second. I've hopefully fixed my camcorder so the picture quality is a bit more consistent. Let's hope, eh? Anyway, we're now moving on to the next AniLysis, which is on the Korla. Who are the Korla? And I'm not talking like phone caller. K-O-R-L-A. Let's see the one quote where we get it from. We Andalites know more about alien races than anyone in the galaxy. We have been in space longer and travelled farther. Plus, we are scientists as well as warriors. So when we find a new race, we study it, as opposed to wiping it out or enslaving it, as the Yeerks do. We know of the Geds and Hork-Bajir and Taxxons, the Korla, the Skrit-Nar, the humans, and many, many others. But this race, these Makora, were just strange. For one thing, they were not at all symmetrical. This comes in Megamorphs 2 in the Time of Dinosaurs, and it's the one time we ever hear about the Korla. And all that we know about them is that the Andalites know of them, and that they have a symmetrical body plan. How can we take that? Well, Axe lists off a number of races and then says, but these Makora are strange because their body is not symmetrical, meaning that, or implying that those in the list he provided earlier had symmetrical bodies. Like on Earth, we have typically bilateral symmetry, which evolved at a certain point, and then basically most living organisms on the planet have it. Plants don't. So it evolved somewhere after the splitting of plant and animal life. But we have it. And so the Korla are supposedly symmetrical. That's lovely to know. But there's something else about this list that is... it gives an implication of what the Korla are. So Axe lists a bunch of races, so things like Hork-Bajir, Taxxons, Skrit-Nar, humans, Yeerks. What do we notice about all those races? He's talking about sentient races, intelligent races, at least to a certain degree, to the point of sentience. And considering he's had Korla in that group, the implication is that the Korla are to some degree intelligent and that they are a sentient race. The limits though can be discussed because obviously he lists the Geds in this little list, and the Geds, when they're described as semi-sentient, like barely sentient, like the lower limit of sentience. Like there is something there, but it's, you know, they're somewhere between non-sentient and sentient life. So that is the lower limit. So Korla could be at Ged level, or they could be up to Andalite level of sentience, whatever that be. There must be a scale somewhere that somebody's invented. There probably isn't actually, because sentience is... well, that's a topic for another day. That's a topic for another day. But just put it this way. Apparently things like chimps are barely sentient in Animorphs. Dogs aren't. But, you know, look a dog in the eyes and tell me there's nothing there. Be my guest. But, yeah, Korla, from this quote, the one quote we get, I'm taking from it that the Andalites know about the race, that they are to some degree sentient, and that they have a symmetrical body plan. Apart from that, we know basically nothing at all. Actually, no, that's incorrect. Looking back at that quote now, there is one other thing that we do know, and it is that the Andalites must have studied them. So the Andalites probably know the Korla pretty well, but they don't tell us anything in this book series. So we're basically back to square one. So that is the Korla, and I could end the AniLysis here, but I'm going to do a second segment to this video, which will happen a lot in some of these videos, where basically I say, that's all the canon stuff we know. I'm going to go into improv fanfiction. So we're going to make up some stuff about the Korla from this point on. So split this video in half. From now on, we are non-canon. Purely, okay? And that's where this picture comes in. I wrote a basic description of the Korla, and I sent it to the resident artist Ghost of Essam. and he produced this. And it resembles quite closely what I had in mind when I came up with a description for these creatures. I was sat in bed one night, I knew I had an AniLysis to do on the Korla, and so I thought, I want to make something weird and wacky in the true Animorph sense, and that's what I've gone for here. And that's why I've not gone to Adobe Firefly in order to get this done. So I sent a description to Ghost of Essam, and I said, this is my idea for the Korla. They are an intelligent species, okay? And I operated on a quote that Axe gave at a different part of the series. From Book 4, The Message, there are only 3 races left in all the known galaxy that still fight the Yeerks, Axe said proudly, and only Andalites can stop them. So in Book 4, The Message, Axe says there are only 3 races that fight the Yeerks, but it's only Andalites that are actually capable of stopping them, which means that 2 alien races are fighting the Yeerks, but it's more on a defensive ground. Okay, it's more of a defensive thing going on, rather than going out there and trying to actually stop the Yeerks from spreading. They're just fighting for their own corner. And I want the Korla to be one of those races. They are naturally very defensive creatures. These big brown shells are what they are born in and grow up in and eventually die in. But they're like big conker shells, or big just say big coconut shells. But they split into quadrants, and within those quadrants, these creatures that look like giant rib cages, they crawl up into these coconut shells, and that's where they rest, and that's where they defend. These shells are, they're solid as a rock, like basically rock solid. And so these fragile, invertebrate-looking creatures, they spend most of the time in these shells, but then they come out to do what they need to do. And yeah, they look like centipedes, but it's actually more like rib cages. These legs are curved and made out of cartilage, and they're connected by this webbing, making them look like big centipedes wearing a coat. That's what they look like. But they're sort of pink, purpley, leathery skin. They are very intelligent creatures, and they do create spacecraft, so I think that's what's going on in the background here. But on the walls, the walls sort of slope upwards to these panels, but they have little holes where they stick their little rib cage-like legs in. And that's how they communicate. They communicate with these cartilage-based leg-like structures, because they have no mouths, they have no noses, they don't even have eyes, they can't see. They do their communicating solely through these cartilage structures, and they plug themselves into their ships and operate by placing the middle part of their body against that panel as well. Basically, imagine this. Instead of doing my computer normally, I'd jam my fingers into the keyboard and press my face against the screen to feel the vibrations of what's going on. That's how they operate. And so they're not the most practical race for space travel. They're not like Andalites. They don't have the variety of senses that allows them to proceed further. Hence why they're no great challenge for the Yeerks, but they still do fight them off. They have a planet rich in resources that the Yeerks want, hence why they're trying to fight off the Yeerks. But the Yeerks can't just go in and take hold of these creatures and turn them into controllers, because they can't be. The brain of these creatures basically forms the central pillar of their body. It's inside this top part of the body here. And there's no ear canal or mouth or anything like that to give the Yeerks easy access to the brain, because they do all their breathing, all that sort of stuff, through like microscopic pores. So unless the Yeerks sliced open this creature, killing it in the process, and crawled in, that's the only way they could actually get into the brain. So they can't. So they've got this big planet full of resources, filled with these creatures that they cannot actually turn into controllers, and who are capable of lower level spacecraft activity, who can to an extent fight them off. So basically it's a battle for resources that the Yeerks are struggling to cope with. being such a defensive creature, they're no threat to anybody really. They just sort of do their own thing, and a lot of their space travel is purely for curiosity reasons. Like AniLysis, they eat through their feet or the cartilage rib-like structures, and that's pretty much all we know about the Korla in my improv fan fiction world. This basically has all been improved. Apart from the picture and the physical description, I've just improved all of this. So if you want to consider that sort of like a pseudo headcanon, be my guest. If you want to come up with something completely different, be my guest. That's part of the fun. It's just, you know, coming up with your own ideas effectively, and this is mine. So thank you to Ghost of Essam for doing this. I know I paid you, so I shouldn't really be thanking you, but thank you anyway. That's how it goes. But yeah, what else can I really say apart from there's the Korla, and I hope you like the idea that I have. And I'll be doing this for other alien races that basically have no description. So things like the Mammothesk, or I'll probably get back to doing the ponds. And oh no, I made a picture of the pond, didn't I? Using Firefly? I think I did actually. But yeah, these alien races that are just sort of thrown out there, name only, we will come up with ideas for them. So we've started here with the Korla, and one that I'm very, 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 very interested in doing eventually is the Anati, a race that never is described but plays a major role in the series. That's going to be a very, very fun one. Thank you very much for watching. This has been the AniLysis on the Korla. What's next in AniLysis? Here's the spin the wheel game, and I've added all the stuff from book 25. So I've gone through the audiobook for book 25 and put things like the Five, Vember, the Visser's new feeding pasture, and Derek. Those options are now in the spin the wheel game, and you can also get things like Eric's house, or young Lauren's home, or Galuit's aid. So what's it going to be in the next episode of AniLysis? Spiddly bink. That's the new word that we use for spinning the wheel, or at least it is for just today only. But what's it going to be in the next episode of AniLysis? Something small, please. Year Killer 9. It's one of the chat room blokes, or birds, in book 16, Year Killer 9. And yeah, that's going to be relatively short, relatively fun, and we're heading back to Earth. We've spent a few recent AniLysis. We've been up there in space, doing space things. We're going back to Earth now. So, thank you very much for watching. Tune in for the next AniLysis, which will be on Year Killer 9. See you then, somewhere else in the Animos universe. Cheerio.